But yeah, but I did read Panther coming up, and Panther's important. He was the first major mainstream hero of African descent that we got to see who wasn't a sidekick. He had his own book. He was his own character. He was a monarch. You know what I mean? His contemporaries were like Doctor Doom and Namor. They had their own kingdoms that they were running. We'd never seen that. He had his own kingdom, the most technologically advanced, country in the world in the middle of Africa that nobody knew about. That's a huge, kind of framework to build a story off of. And then two, he came from a legacy of powerful black male kings. So these characters were initially targeted at African American readers. And the comic book industry for generations was really targeted more at boys. So you're talking about a character that was being designed to cater to black boys. And we got to see things that black boys never got to see. A strong male who was actually in a position of leadership. One of his most significant superpowers is he was one of the top 10 intellects on the planet. And he was deeply immersed into science and technology. He created his own branch of physics in the comic books. When's the last time you saw a superhero do that? He inspired black boys to ask questions about science, to actually inquire about going into STEM before, I remember before it was popularly called STEM. But it was one of those things that the character, excited in young black boys. So it became very important. Yeah. So T'Challa, culturally speaking, was significant, even though he wasn't created by black character, by black, comic book insiders. They kind of appropriated him at a certain point because of the importance to boys.
Okay, so once again, why are some people salty about the new Wakanda Forever movie? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, Entertainment and Media. First of all, please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. If you want to donate something to the channel, that information is below in the description box. And also, please consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. In addition to being a YouTube content creator, I'm also a writer with 2 blogs and with a book project on the way. I've shared some of that promotional content for my book project on my community tab. So if you're a subscriber, you will have seen some of that, and you'll see more. And if you're not a subscriber, once again, please consider becoming a subscriber. Well, I wanted to, in the lead up to Wakanda Forever, I wanted to come on and make a video just rehashing and shining the light back on this whole debate about the controversy surrounding this movie. Just like the first movie, the original Black Panther, this one is causing a stir. The first movie was it was more than a superhero movie. It was a social event. It was arguably the event of the century. Folks were going into the theater wearing berets. Folks were wearing dashikis. Folks were going in the theater with drums. Folks were even telling white people not to go see the movie. And I think something happened recently where a woman told sympathizers to Black Lives Matter, don't go see the movie on opening weekend, buy some tickets and give them to black people, and you go see the movie after opening weekend. There's something about these movies, these Black Panther and Wakanda Forever movies, that that makes people go a little bit, that gets people off the rocker. Well, you know what it is. It's that it's imaging. It's imaging and messaging, and I'm going to talk about that later on in this video. It's the fact that it's a movie featuring mostly black people, and it's a movie featuring black people as the heroes and the heroines. I won't go into detail, but I have memories of my father, who was a boomer, lamenting the imaging on TV, in movies, and in media, and the lack of black representation and the unfair images of black people, and just lamenting the imaging of black people on the silver screen and on TV. So it's a big deal that it's a movie featuring mostly black people with black heroes and heroines. So and that's something else. I forgot to say this in my previous two videos, or three videos, whatever, about what was good about phases 1 and 2 of the MCU. One of the things I thought about was that the original 6 Avengers, they were all white. And in that first Avengers movie, before they brought on Rhodey and Falcon, the only black person in the movie was Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And I don't think Nick Fury in the Marvel Comics, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Nick Fury was actually black. But so they made Nick Fury black for this. But anyway, so the imaging matters. And if you, so let's talk about why some people are salty about this new movie. I would encourage you to go back and look at my live stream with Dr. Hasan Johnson from a couple of months ago. He has a Academy for Black Male Studies, and he talks about black males issues, black boys issues, and he's done a lot of good work in those areas. But when he talked to me, he shared that, like me and other black men, he learned to read by reading comic books. I was a DC guy, but Dr. Johnson shared that one of the characters in one of the comics he read growing up was the Black Panther. And shout out to Mr. Troy, the late Mr. Troy, from the Higher Achievement Mentoring Program. He introduced the Black Panther to me earlier. I think it might have been around 2011, 2012. We were mentoring, and he shared with me that Marvel was coming out with a Black Panther movie. I thought it was something related to Huey P. Newton and Eldridge Cleaver, and he was like, no, it's a superhero. And then gradually I saw, okay, yeah, it's a superhero, and wow, he's a part of the MCU. He's a hero just like Captain America and Iron Man and Hulk and Thor, and so this is the Black Panther. But Dr. Johnson said that was a character for black boys to aspire to, and it really inspired a lot of black boys, himself included, to pick up a book and read. And one of the things we're seeing now, for those of you who don't know, is a very low reading proficiency rate for black boys nationwide, in a certain age range, and that's detrimental because it'll adversely affect their futures going forward. But the point is that character was originally designed arguably for black boys, and it inspired black boys to go and become something. And the original Black Panther character, I'm going to show a visual that I'm borrowing from Twitter. Someone posted this. The
athleticism, fighting, but so he takes the heart-shaped herb. He has Captain America-esque level superpowers, hyper physicality, but still within the realm of human possibility. Like they always used to describe Cap as being like a high-level Olympian athlete. So Panther, who actually would beat Captain America every time they would fight,
really,
he was beat Captain America, which was a big deal to us. It was like, because we, that wasn't something we saw in the 60s and 70s, but you did see it in the 90s and the 2000s. So he was peak level, just above Cap in that respect, right? But that's not what made him so great. What made him great is he was absolutely brilliant. He was just a strategic genius. You know what I mean? He was, that was the thing that really set him apart. He would invent things. He would create new technology. Every time you'd see him in a comic, he'd be walking around with something brand new that he just built. And you're just like, wow, because this was something you only got to see with people like Tony Stark or, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, where they're creating all kinds of new technology. Then all of a sudden you shift over to Wakanda, and this is supposed to be the most technologically advanced country in the world. So it stands to reason they would be designing new things, and he would design his own things. And so it was brilliant, and I think that's the character many of us wanted to see on screen.
The Black Panther character, the way he was supposed to be, was not only strong, he was not only a good fighter, but it was also his mind. And he built things and he designed things on the level of what Tony Stark could and would build. And I'll go over to DC, Bruce Wayne. The character was supposed to be that. And a lot of people don't like how T'Challa was portrayed in the first movie, where his intellect and his scientific innovation was put into the Shuri character. So that's something people were salty about regarding that first depiction of him. I could get into the gender and how Wakanda was dominated by women in the first movie and it's going to be dominated by them in this movie. But I would encourage you to go back and take a look at my discussion with Dr. Johnson to learn some more about that. But people, the diehard fans are salty about that the character, the T'Challa, the Black Panther character, in his movie was not the true depiction of the character. And now people are salty because with Chadwick Boseman's death, they've killed off the character altogether and given the Black Panther mantle to his sister Shuri, played by Letitia Wright. I'm going to admit, and I'm going to defer to those who are more familiar with the source material. I've heard numerous things, but one of the things I've heard regarding this whole thing about killing off the T'Challa character permanently is that in the comic books, Shuri only held the mantle temporarily. So I think that that's another reason why people are salty about this, is that she was never meant to take the mantle over permanently. And then let's talk about multiple incarnations of characters. People have brought up that there have been multiple Supermans. There have been multiple Batmans played by multiple actors over the years. But also James Bond. There have been numerous James Bonds over the years. And I think people are unhappy with what they did with the T'Challa character, because Chadwick Boseman before his death wanted the character to go on, and his family wanted the character to go on, but whoever is running Marvel and the MCU over at Disney, it appears that they've decided that that's it for T'Challa, no more. It's Shuri, and whatever it is they're going to give us in Wakanda Forever. Now, shout out to my brother Amahl Dunbar. He has his own channel, Visual Effects Heroes. I talked about his channel in previous videos, and I left his link below. I'm going to leave his link below this video as well. He did say before I did my stream with Dr. Johnson, well, depending upon how Wakanda Forever turns out, whatever you guys say about it, you might end up sounding and being short-sighted. And that's a good point, because who knows what's going to be in the movie? This might be a better movie than the first Black Panther. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But that's why there's a certain segment of people who are not happy with what they've seen in the trailers thus far. And I'm going to leave an article below which states that there's a rumor that the MCU, they're going to be very, very careful about rolling out the toys for this because of the potential backlash for this because of this reason. So this is a really, really big deal. And in terms of what they're doing with it, the marketing machine for this has already left the station. The train has already left the station. You could look at the Target ads. You could look at they have all kinds of ads running targeting a specific demographic. So this movie, I mean, one of the exciting things is we're going to see the Submariner. We're going to see Namor, the Submariner, but the rest of the movie, from the trailers, and from all of the commercials that I'm seeing, they're clearly targeting a specific demographic. So, and will that demographic will they gravitate towards this, or will it ultimately lose money? Will this ultimately backfire? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But that's the controversy surrounding this. Aside from telling white people not to show up and see the movie until after opening weekend. And I think I'm going to wrap this up there. Imaging and messaging are important. That's one of my core messages. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I think the character should have gone on. The T'Challa character, the Black Panther character should have lived on. And I think that they should have portrayed the character the way the character was written up in the source material. And to not do that is a bit of a sin. So that's my opinion. And then going back to my discussion with Dr. Johnson, if in fact the character itself was that important for young black boys growing up into black men, what does that say? What does that say for them, since that character has been taken away? And Dr. Johnson, another interesting thing, because one of my previous videos, and I'm going to wrap this up, talked about the characters in phases 1 and 2 of the MCU and how they fit together and the casting and the chemistry. Rhodey and Falcon, they're sidekicks. They were sidekicks. They were ride-alongs for Captain America and Iron Man. I enjoyed Rhodey, played by Don Cheadle. I enjoyed War Machine Rhodey, played by Don Cheadle, and Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson Falcon. But they were sidekicks. T'Challa was his own character, his own hero. And it was exciting in Captain America Civil War when they added him into the group of heroes. For me, it was like getting a bunch of new toys. You know, you had these original toys, and now you're adding in a Vision and a Black Panther and a Spider-Man and an Ant-Man. You're adding in these new toys and these new characters. Anyway, this has gone on long enough. I'm going to go see it. I'm a YouTube content creator, so part of my job, having an entertainment and media channel, is to go see Wakanda Forever and talk about it. I may do a stream beforehand with other interested parties, but there will definitely be a stream afterwards for those same interested parties. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. What do you think about what they've done with the Wakanda world and T'Challa and Shuri, and what do you think? Are you happy with it? Do you think this has been a complete screw up? Are you going to go see it? Are you going to boycott it? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Once again, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something to the channel, that information is below in the description box. And also, please consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. So with that, everyone, stay safe out there. Wakanda Forever. And with that, as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will see you the next time. Bye-bye.
So I wanted to see, of course, I wanted to see more black characters. I didn't like a lot of the black characters in the mainstream Marvel and DC universes were sidekicks.
So
Yeah.
stop. So you're talking about War Machine. You're talking about Falcon,
Oh,
right?
yes. They defined themselves. Their whole characters were based off of white characters. They were based off of, Steve, as far as Captain America. You mentioned Tony, as far as Iron Man. Their characters were extensions of them. There wasn't always a clear narrative that showed that they were three-dimensional human beings. You know what I mean? They were just kind of these black proxies of white characters. And there's a legacy of that in comics that goes back generations. You know what I mean? As far as black comic book characters. And so, some of the early generations of black comic readers ended up becoming comic book writers and artists, even within Marvel and DC, because they saw the potential for comic book heroes, but they really got tired of the sidekick business and they wanted to, do at least one of two things. They wanted to create independent characters and stories that humanized black men, and particularly black heroes, but then they also wanted to take the characters that had been around and make them into realistic beings. And I think that was the push of a lot of black men going into the comic book industry. They saw the value of it, the potential of it. They saw what it did for boys, especially in school. They had experienced it themselves, but they wanted to actually make it more applicable, make it real. Um, and so from there, you end up with a legacy of black comic book characters that became more realistic, most particularly in the 90s and the 2000s.
Okay. All right. Well, it's funny. You said that War Machine was an extension of Iron Man and Falcon was an extension of Cap.
Mhm.
That's the one thing I got the sense of when they initially introduced Black Panther in to the MCU was that okay, he's his own character.
Yes.
So, were you familiar? My next question is: were you familiar with T'Challa and Black Panther in comic books before he hit the big screen?
Oh yeah, definitely. Let me say this real quick though. When you see Captain America: Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
and you remember when Steve and Tony were disagreeing about the Accords,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remember when Rhodey and oh goodness, Falcon,
Yep. Sam
they're
Wilson.
debating, but they're extensions of Tony and Steve. So Tony and Steve are sitting in the room quietly at a certain point, and Rhodey and Falcon are arguing just like they're Tony and Steve. Like there's virtually no separation between them and their benefactors. You know what I mean? That legacy of being sidekicks is still apparent. And that's what made Panther so important. You didn't see him as a sidekick to anybody. He had his own opinion, he had his own context, he came out of his own particular history. He was independent of that legacy. Now, Panther himself was written and created by white men at Marvel Comics. But you had again generations of black writers and artists who sought to make the character applicable to Black America. And I remember that push. Well, I should say there's various waves of it, but it's even in the 90s. I remember that push to make him applicable, make him to tie him to the Black communal experience, that whole kind of thing. And that was important to a lot of us comic lovers who just didn't see ourselves in the books. We wanted stories that made sense, stories that came out of our own experiences, especially if you were going to have black characters.